Man, what a terrible game I just finished. Okay, now that you're clickbaited, let me be honest. Dark Souls 2 is definitely a game. Honestly, it's not a bad game. It's actually really good now that I've played the whole thing, but there are just some issues with this thing. It just makes me go, why? Why did we do this? Releasing March 11th, 2014 to the cult following of Dark Souls 1, a direct sequel to the series. Everyone was ready for the expansion of the Dark Souls world. The problem is, it's a bit of a disappointment. I think we put our expectations so high that when it just didn't meet it, players were just really disappointed and started calling this game incredibly bad. Hate that it doesn't deserve. Now, does it deserve some hate? Yes. Is it a sequel? Yes. But it takes place in a completely different area. It's the same world, and you can understand DS2's story without DS1, but there's some context and things bring over from DS1 that help. From the world of Dark Souls 1, you rekindle the flame, and the curse of the undead spreads across the whole world, and undead are traveling to this place during Link to see if they can learn to break the curse, and that's where I begin, making my character, picking the rogue type build as I thought I would do a dex build. I'll soon learn later that was never going to happen. My brain has been infected with Unga Bunga. But the first and most noticeable change is there's no boss at the beginning to make me feel like I'm worthless. I was expecting it, but that's a, small disappointment right there. As soon as you finish the tutorial, you make it to Majula, the hub world, the Firelink shrine of this world. We meet with our Firekeeper who allows us to level up. This works like it did in Demon Souls, where you have to go to her to level up, and honestly, it's just a chore. It can be really annoying when you get enough to level up, have to go all the way back and teleport, then do it again over and over and over. It's just a small thing, but man, it gets on my nerves. And then the next big change is very apparent. There are a lot of new stats. The classic ones are here: faith, dex, strength. But what is this vitality and ADP? Okay, so this is a little messed up. They separated your equipment load and stamina. That's very annoying. But what is this ADP? It's your dodge roll? You're kidding me. I have to upgrade my iframes? You're actually dumb for this. To get it to be the same as Dark Souls 1, you have to get the number that this upgrades to 96, which is about 15 levels. What the f? No wonder whenever I dodge something, it doesn't seem to matter. This is some No. Need to give this game a little bit more of a chance. I haven't even played the first boss yet. Let me give this game a better chance, right? Because what I've heard is that you do level up really quickly, so it shouldn't be that big of a deal. And one thing I've done like is how the weapons feel. The scimitar I got in the beginning, and even the greatswords, they feel a lot more fun than they did in Dark Souls 1. Again, that wasn't really that big of a deal as I'm talking about, as I was level 120 before the final boss, and that was really only doing main content, so you do level up quickly. Now, you also get your Estus right away, and as always, wait, where are my Estus flasks? Why do I only have one? Ah, great, just another thing to add on top. They really make it hard to enjoy. One Estus flask. Yes, you'll find more, but it takes forever to find them. So the first third of the game is really annoying because you only have one recovery. Now, they take another note from Demon Souls. There are other healing items like the grass, but unlike the grass, which is more of an unlimited resource and it's everywhere, this game has life gems, and life gems are few and far between. But I guess that makes up for it? Man, this game just can't do anything else, or I'm just done. But let's just give it another chance. There are some things around here. A weapons merchant, a blacksmith, this NPC with a cool moonlight greatsword, he seems pretty cool. Some other things blocked off that I can't get into. The blacksmith also locked himself out of his own shop, and this mansion that is blocked. But I actually want to go play the game, so I'm going to go to the first area, the Forest of the Giants, filled with basic guards and basic enemies. I did enjoy my time here, but I thought it was too hard to navigate. I ended up doing the exact same thing I did in the last game, which was wing, spear, then halberd. I'm a creature of habit. I'll probably use a greatsword next. Now, of course, this is the starting area, so you're going to get jumped and die. And there's another thing. Of course there's another thing. Every time you die, you slowly lose more and more health. That's the curse. I like the lore reasons, but Dark Souls, can you stop taking my HP away? Took another cue from Demon Souls, because in Demon Souls, when you died, your health would be nerfed. Now, it slowly gets nerfed over time, but it will keep going lower and lower and lower until you go to halfway health, unless you're using this ring that somewhat helps you a little bit. You know, I get it, it's Dark Souls. You get punished for being bad. But like, dang! This game. I then did find an elevator to the first boss, the last giant. A slave trapped here by his own fate, lost and angry. Like a lot of the other people in this world. He got me a few times, but nothing crazy. I mean, he was fun for a first boss, but again, a little underwhelming. And after this boss, this game is not clear at all. I don't want to seem like I'm complaining, but even in DS1, it at least felt like I knew where to go, or there were options. In this game, I'm like, where do I go? Or I know there are places that I can go, but they're blocked off by items that cost way too many souls for you. And it just leaves me frustrated. Not fun frustrated like I'm fighting Melania, but annoyed frustrated at this bullshit. I'm gonna be honest with you guys, what I did with this game. I was getting so done with this game. I used a tutorial for some sections, and I know you're like, oh, that's not the real way to play. It's Dark Souls 2. Come on, don't hate me for it. I'm also not doing everything this game has to offer. Some of y'all will be like, no, you didn't do the DLC, or oh, it's such a game. But I know some of y'all will be like, yeah, it's fair. We just want Bloodborne now. But I went back to a door that was hidden in an area before. I then encountered the Pursuer, and I love this boss idea so much. Not just the boss fight itself, but also what this boss is. See, the Pursuer is just like you. No matter how many times you kill it, it will keep coming back. Not in this boss battle. You unfortunately only have to beat it once. But you'll just be exploring, and then you'll get a message. Hey, watch out behind you. And you turn around, and guess who's there? The Pursuer. Now, I'm not mad about it because his boss fight's actually fun. He has great sword swings, his timing is fun to learn, right? And he has good openings, so it feels fair. But the one thing I did learn, and this is pretty much it for me, there's no iframes when opening boss doors. This game's already as bad as it is with the enemies. You feel like you're getting jumped every 2 seconds, and now it's even worse. They make the boss runs incredibly difficult because you either have to go through and kill all the enemies or just pray and hope that you don't get jumped at the door.
They jumping me!
And every time I kill all the enemies, I have enough to level up, and I have to walk all the way back to the bonfire, teleport, and then level up, and just to rinse and repeat. Lack of iframes makes some of these boss runs so painful. This is just dumb. Of course Miyazaki didn't have a hand in this. He was working on Bloodborne. This game is just frustrating to say the least, but I need to breathe. It's still a fun game at the end of the day. I'm enjoying the bosses. It has that typical Dark Souls flair. It is from FromSoft. It is their worst showing in the Souls franchise, but I can't be mad. It's not like Ubisoft's worth showing. But after this boss, I pick up some armor that I used for the main game for the longest time. And I also get yoinked by a bird that takes us to the next area. To be honest, I was having a really rough time here, so I left. And I found Hyde's Tower, my next area. This area looks scary, but in reality, the enemies, you just walk around and you'll be fine. Then I was at the Dragon Rider, another fun boss. Some of his patterns messed me up, but after a few tries, I was able to figure him out, and this brought me to the Wharf. Now, I had some options here. Go fight the dragon at Hyde's, No Man's Wharf, or the Sentinels. I tried Sentinels, but it just didn't work out for me. I could beat the one, but I couldn't beat the other two. I just kept getting jumped. And because I was killing the enemies, every time I even made it to the boss room, I had to level up, and you know what that means. Dragon I couldn't even get to because I kept getting jumped by all these enemies. So that meant No Man's Wharf. Now, I had to do this slowly and carefully with the Ring of Healing, because there just seemed to be so many enemies in every corner I turned. Oh, yeah, did you know that the version you're playing actually changes the enemies and adds new ones where they're not supposed to be? What? What the actual... So, the Scholar of the First Sin is an actual worse version of the game I've been playing. It just gets worse and worse. No wonder this game has just felt like I've been getting jumped every 3 seconds, randomly invaded by the same 3 people, and even in No Man's Wharf, I don't get a second to breathe by all these enemies. And man, just another thing this game decides to do, man, it just, ooh. Is that Guts' greatsword? Yeah? You know, maybe I'm being a little too harsh on this game. You know, look what they're giving me. When I was exploring the wharf, I found the ultra greatsword. You know, this game ain't that bad. In the wharf, I call the ship, which gets me to the Flexile Sentry. He either hits you as hard as possible or is really fast. To really mess with you, they were like, oh, so we're gonna raise the water levels during the boss fight, and it's just gonna get higher and higher just to really make things harder. I tried Sentinel again, and they just keep jumping me. Really, the only option is I'm not surviving hides. I was wondering, I know this game has summons for every boss, so where are they? Oh, yeah, I need to be in human form. Okay, they're still not there. Oh, yeah, remember that covenant you joined at the beginning? It blocks summons. Really? You serious? Leaving this covenant, I was finally able to return and reverse jump the sentinels. Get my run back on these fools. They are so easy when I don't have to deal with 2 of them at the same time. And that means I go back to hides, summon the friend, and it's an easy kill. That dragon is easy. This masterless guy comes here and helps. And then I get to my next boss. Like, Ornstein, what are you doing here? This is most likely just fan service. It's probably not the real Ornstein. Maybe it is, but it's probably just someone in the outfit. Now, honestly, this boss is way easier without Smo. It's cool. It's really easy with the summon. I might also be a bit over leveled. I'm like level 70 at this point. Also, outside of this area, there's just an NPC who's just an asshole, bro. Bro, come on. And he's not the only one I've encountered. I've been roasted for my intelligence, my faith, and now I'm just being scoffed at for existing. I was wondering where the starting area op is, but they're just all over the place. What's definitely different about this game is the amount of NPCs. There seems to be so many. Almost as many as Elden Ring. Now, the issue is because there's so many of them, they're very uninteresting and boring. Now, of course, we have
Gavlan wheel, Gavlan deal.
And the guy with the Moonlight Greatsword, but there's a lot of them where you're just like, ah, cool, what's up, bro? One of my favorite NPCs is this girl who, when you save her, you can give her any type of armor you want.
What the hell are you wearing?
It's my ass-kicking outfit.
She'll teach you pyromancy, but it also unlocks an area that is required to progress the game. This gets us into our next area with ghosts that I can't lock onto. They really messed me up, as when I first saw them, I was like, oh, it's just people who are also playing Dark Souls 2 for some reason. Nope, no, they were ops. And this area is just filled with the hurt. And things just start to break. Your items will just break. But this leads to the Scorpion, which forgot her name. But she is like the Spider Lady in the last game, just a little bit harder because she's going to zone you out with magic. But again, I just got a summon who is this Chad, and the fight was a breeze. Didn't continue on in this area. I went back to the area where I fought the Rune Sentinels and just continued on. Fighting secrets like the Bell Covenant, and then moving further past to the next main boss, the Lost Sinner. This is one of my favorite fights. I love fighting these overly quick knights and the aesthetic of someone who did something so horribly, even if forgotten, they keep themselves here. This is the first Great Soul, and if you'll read, you'll learn that you need 4 of these souls. And these Great Souls are the same souls from DS1, which is where you start to see the continuation. And this is what I mean by it just makes the game better playing DS1. Is you see how these characters' actions from your past and your actions of kindling the flames drag over into this world. But after the fight, you rekindle a primordial bonfire. From this point on, I was using the big Unga Dunga sword, and honestly, piece of cake this game was. I fully upgraded this sword and it just made things so easy. Wait, this is becoming a pattern. I did this in the last game. Now with our return, the path to the Forest of the Giants is different. There's a new way to go, which brings us to the Dark Forest with these nasty butterflies. Ah, yes, I know what we're going into. Poison! Yay! This Dark Forest leads to the Skeleton Lords, and this fight might have been hard for some people, but with the sword that takes over half the screen, they're all just easily. And I'm so glad this is the only part of the game the wheel enemies are in, because if I had to deal with them again, this fight brings us to more poison. I love poison. You can kind of ignore poison, but the items. I need the items, even if it means I die. And of course, it's just rubbish. But what if they were good? They could have been good. And then we get to the Covenant Deacon. I have nothing to say. This was a nothing boss. Now, we have more poison, but people that attack with bleed. This game's bleed is really annoying, because if you get bleed proc, your stamina goes far down. But I just ran past all these enemies to get to Mithra, and oh, great. More poison. Her health gets melted by my greatsword, but I die before I can even kill her. There was a way to get rid of the poison. It was by pure accident I figured this out. There's a small oil that is barely visible, but again, you can light it and it knocks out the poison. And with the poison gone, I mean, maybe it took like 8 hits to knock her down. Brought us to the lava castle. I really liked this area as the enemies were cool and hard to get past, but the issue was they gave me so many souls, so eventually after I killed them so many times they just stopped spawning, and that led me straight to Smelter Demon. And this boss was another one of my favorites. He has 3 phases but all the same moves. I slowly figured out his 3 swings. The one move that kept getting me during his fire phase when he does his down slash, I swear I dodged it. But after a few struggles, I finally got it. Ooh, that felt good. Smelter Demon to me was one of the only bosses in Dark Souls where I was like, man, it just felt good to finally defeat him. And sadly in DS2, there's only a few bosses that made me feel that way. I mean, it felt so good to finally see Smelter Demon go down. It's that feeling in Souls game where you're finally able to beat that one boss that just gives you that struggle. The feeling that you can finally move on. There wasn't a lot of those in Dark Souls 2. But hey, always remember, no matter how hard a boss is, you only have to defeat him once. Now that gets us closer to the Iron King, and man, I'm ready for this. Oh, it's one of these bosses. Honestly, another letdown as this cutscene was so cool, but of course, it's a gimmick fight. Of course I'm going to use a summon for this. I'm not enjoying this fight. But I also did meet a man who would give me some ladders. Much appreciated. Homies are good to see. But I went back to the Scorpion Lady, then found a lot more spiders and farmers with cursor. How did y'all get a hold of these? Then I had to fight a church congregation. Honestly, I thought this wasn't even a boss. When I fought them, I was just like, oh, it's a group of enemies. And then we make it down to the spider. Luckily, they ignore me if I have a torch, which I'm glad I learned how to use. And this brings me to Freya. This spider shouldn't be hitting Kamehamehas out of their mouth, but besides that, you just hit weak points. You can't hit them unless it's the head, because their body is just pure iron. Bullshit. It's not fun hard, it's another annoying hard boss. Anyways, returning to Firelink. Oh, what's up, ladder man? He builds me a ladder for me to go to the next area. More of rats and poison. Dark Souls 2 devs, what is it your problem with rats and poisons? We fight a rat vanguard, and then we have to follow down an area where you get hit with more poison. And then have to run through the most bullshit poison area with, what are these enemies? And of course I'm getting invaded. Why do I keep getting invaded by the same 3 people? But that gets us to the Rotten. Just really walk around him. I mean, he kinda sucks as a boss. All the main 4 bosses other than Lost Sinner were like disappointing. Like, maybe it's just me from coming off Elden Ring and Sekiro, but DS1 and DS2 and Demon Souls, other than maybe Maneater, are just really easy bosses. But with the 4 Great Souls deads and the embers rekindled, we met by Aldia, the scholar of the first sin. His voice is super cool, but he was the one NPC I didn't read, so when a yes or no question appeared, I was like, huh? Well, what am I agreeing to? But that leads us to Drangleic Castle. Our firekeep urges us to press this on, and the one gimmick I like about this area is these golems that need souls to be activated. So you need to kill enemies around them to continue. I just think that's really cool. Personally, my favorite dungeon in the whole game, meeting Cassandra, who at first sight I'm like, yeah, she's the villain. Then fighting 2 dragon riders, but one of their health was abysmal, so it didn't even matter. Then exploring and seeing past bosses and enemies jump me while I'm activating this golem. And then this bringing me even further to the Mirror Knight. Oh, he was really cool. Another one that actually gave me some trouble, but I like him. Pulling some form of character from an alternate world or a reflection to fight me was really cool. And then we get to the prettiest area in the game. And I love when Dark Souls and Souls games use these blue flower areas with these glows. I feel so at peace if I wasn't getting sniped by magicians every 3 seconds. This game may not be the best, but damn its snipers are accurate. After playing a bit of Metal Gear to not get sniped, I make it to the Demon of Song. An easy enough boss, but can only be harmed when its head is active, and that also when it attacks. But when you're playing a build that does absurd damage every hit, it doesn't really matter all that much. And in this journey down the castle, we found the final area in Drangleic Castle, the catacombs, with these bells that remind me of DS1, and loads of enemies. I dealt with some of them, but at the end I was just like, I'm just gonna run past them. And then it made it to one of my favorite bosses in the game, Velistat. I really like all his swings, and I love how he implores magic to really get you. It was a ton of fun. One of the bosses I actually enjoyed this game, having to find the perfect time to dodge and hit him. I really felt like I was fighting for my life. I got really close to my 5th run, but I got greedy thinking I was playing a dex build. But remember, I only get 3 swings before I'm out of stamina. After this boss, that leads us to Vendrick, the old king of Drangleic. And just like Gwen, he is beaten, broken, but he doesn't have his fighting spirit. He's not even willing to fight, just walking around in his own shame, slowly, forever cursed here to suffer. It's reflective of the world, this undead curse. People just forget why they want to live, who they are. They do things and they do things and then eventually just give up. Some keep trying and remind themselves of the reasons, and others just sit pondering why they do anything. And all he leaves is a ring, the king's symbol. But do you worry that maybe you'll end up like Vendrick, going down the same path? That does give us the ability to open these doors. I did the one at the ruin path, which brought me to the Scorpion Lady, but a little earlier I remembered, there was a door there, which brought me to this manor with dragons, skeletons, and continuous ogres. I tried to run past them, but I did learn if you kill them once, they don't respawn, and that led to Guardian Dragon, the first dragon fight. I really enjoyed this fight, always left some good running around and ankle biting. Now we're in the Dragon Sanctum. I would say this is the coolest area. Yes, the chasm under Drangleic is the prettiest, but this area is the coolest, just seeing all these dragons flying around. I will say this game did great in the area design. Man, this is just a spectacle. It's breathtaking. But as I make it to a castle, I met this dragon who gave me the ability to time travel. Oh, wow, that's impressive. Dang. Second time Dark Souls has dealt with time travel, but this allows us to see the visions of former giants and get the item we need from the giant king, who oddly looks like the last giant. That might be why he's so hostile when he sees us at the beginning of the game. In the past, we kill him for this item and then return to Drangleic Castle, travel through the last of Gwen's blocked doors, and then there's a summon who I recognize, the man with the Moonlight Greatsword. Oh, I'm glad he's here to fight with me. Which leads us to the Watcher and Defender, 2 bosses. My boy helps take out the Watcher and I deal with the Defender. Defender is very unga bunga and the Watcher is a light dex build, but them 2 together works really well, the contrast. But that leads to Cassandra, and well, what a underwhelming boss fight. Really, the only thing of note she does is curse you, which drops your HP, but otherwise she doesn't really do much in this fight. I mean, I don't know what I was expecting, but she kind of represents my whole problem with this game. Things are really cool, but a bit underwhelming. Right, like 2 tries on the final boss? Maybe my build's just good, but that's not what I'm going to assume. Kind of just my whole thing with Dark Souls 2. After I got momentum and passed all the issues at the beginning of the game, things weren't bad, they were just underwhelming. There's a lot of things this game does that are really annoying, but at the end, just a bunch of minor issues that don't make this game bad, but just make it okay. It's not the worst game I've ever played, but it's not the best thing. There were things I liked, but there were things attached to the things I liked that made me dislike it. I liked a lot of the NPCs, like the map man who you find who wanders about himself and then finds this map that's his dream. Or
With Gavlan, you will.
I like how the world feels so much more alive. I love seeing the areas. I wish the game was a bit more connected, like areas led back to Majula in DS1. Some of the small ideas it did, like the golems, giving this girl armor, and the enemy variety were impeccable. Except the NPC invaders. It was the same 3 people over and over and over. That got on my nerves. I was seeing the invasion and was wondering, like, when are you going to learn, old man? It was a lot more like Demon Souls in most regards, a very straightforward and linear path, having to basically going, here's this area, go explore it. Most of the bosses were also underwhelming. Some I loved. Funny enough, it was all the ones that wielded swords and like hand weapons that I actually loved. But you know what? I'm glad this game tried something new and failed, as sometimes you just have to mess up to make something great. And great things came out of this, as the next few games are about to blow my mind, and I know it. But with my disappointment, I go and take the throne. But unknowing, funny enough, I'm just repeating history. There were other options, but I was so focused on finishing the game, I ended up like Vendrick, blindly following the Firekeeper, telling me what the right path was, even if I didn't feel it was right. Even if the Firekeeper is good, that fear of ending up like Vendrick is real. And I think what Dark Souls 2 is trying to teach us is never forget. There are many NPCs in this world who forget their name, their purpose, like the Mapkeeper. They wonder why they're here. Like Vendrick, who lost his purpose and reason after all the mistakes he made. And I think the player can fall into the same path. The game makes it clear we are here to find a way to break the curse, but end up just continuing the curse's cycle without knowing. Now, yes, there is another option, but if you're so focused on the task ahead, you forget why. And as humans, we do that a lot, forgetting our meaning and purpose when we're so focused on moving ahead. We never stop and wonder why we were moving ahead.